Hey everyone. Welcome to AfriHeart Stories, your go-to spot for African tales. Don't forget to like, subscribe and drop a comment. Now sit back and enjoy. Ade Balogun had always believed that love wasn't just about saying the words, it was about showing them. At 38, his life was stable, almost enviable. He was a successful real estate developer in Lagos, managing luxury estates and high-end rentals. His wife, Funk, was beautiful, elegant, and often the center of attention at social gatherings. And then there was Chike, Funk's 15-year-old son from her previous marriage, whom Ade had embraced as his own. Or at least he thought he had. It was a sunny Friday afternoon, and Ade was in his office finalizing documents when he glanced at the clock. 4:15 p.m. Normally he would work until 6:30, but today he decided to leave early. His mind formed a simple yet heartfelt plan: surprise Funk and Chike with an early return, a bouquet of red roses, and a rich chocolate cake from their favorite bakery. "Sir, are you leaving already?" his secretary, Busy, asked as she gathered the files on his desk. "Yes, Busy. I think it's time I did something sweet for my family. Cancel the 5 o'clock meeting." Within minutes, Ade was in his sleek black Range Rover, the city's late afternoon bustle swirling outside his tinted windows. Lagos was alive with the familiar chorus of blaring horns, street vendors calling out, and the warm scent of roasted corn drifting into the air. His driver, Tund, maneuvered expertly through the traffic. "Let's stop at La Patisserie first," Ade instructed. "Get that chocolate velvet cake Funk likes." They made a quick detour. Ade stepped into the fragrant bakery, greeted by the smell of sugar and cocoa. He selected the cake, its glossy chocolate ganache shimmering under the glass display. Beside it he picked up a fresh bouquet of roses, crimson petals soft as silk. As they neared home, Ade had another thought. "Tund, stop a street before the house." "I'll walk from here," he said, smiling. "I don't want them to hear the car." Tund chuckled. "You want to surprise Madam and young master?" "Exactly." Ade stepped out, carrying the cake and flowers. The evening sun dipped lower, painting the sky in shades of amber. He imagined the scene: Funk's delighted gasp, Chike's grin, the three of them laughing over an early dinner. The compound gate was slightly ajar, unusual but not alarming. Ade slipped in quietly, careful not to make a sound. Inside the house was quiet, too quiet. No sound of the TV, no clattering of pots in the kitchen. That's when he heard it. Muffled voices, tense, coming from Chike's room. Ade paused mid-step, tilting his head. "Don't lie to me, Chike." Funk's voice was sharp, laced with anger. His brows furrowed. At first he thought maybe she'd caught the boy misbehaving, but something in her tone felt too harsh. He moved closer, footsteps silent on the tiled floor. "You think I won't find out?" Funk barked again. Ade, still out of sight, felt a pang of confusion. Then a sound cut through him, Chike's trembling voice pleading. "Mummy, I swear I didn't take it. I don't know where the money went." Ade's heartbeat quickened. He edged toward the half-open door and pushed it gently. The sight stopped him cold. Funk was standing over Chike, her face twisted in fury. In her hand she clutched his school bag, pulling it apart and tossing books and papers onto the floor. Chike was on his knees, tears streaming down his cheeks, his hands raised defensively. On his left cheek was an angry red mark, the unmistakable shape of a slap. Ade's smile, his warm surprise, evaporated instantly. The cake felt heavier in his hands. "Funk?" Ade's voice was sharper than he intended, echoing in the small bedroom. Funk spun around, startled, her eyes darting to the flowers and cake in his hands. For a brief moment, guilt flickered across her face, but it was gone in an instant. She straightened her posture, as though nothing unusual was happening. "Ade, you're home early," she said, forcing a smile. "I was just." "What's going on here?" His gaze shifted from her to Chike, who was still on his knees, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. Funk exhaled heavily. "Your son has been stealing from me. Money has been disappearing from my purse and I've had enough." Ade's eyes narrowed. "He's not my son, he's our son. And what is this?" He gestured toward Chike's cheek. "Did you hit him?" Funk's voice was defensive. "Ade, sometimes children need discipline. He needs to learn." Ade's jaw tightened. Discipline is not slapping a child and tearing his belongings apart. Chike looked down, silent, as though afraid to speak. Ade set the cake and flowers on the desk beside the bed, then crouched to Chike's level. "Chike, look at me. Did you take any money from her?" The boy shook his head vigorously. "No, sir. I didn't." Ade turned back to Funk. And you think humiliating him like this is the way to find out the truth? Funk folded her arms. You're too soft with him. That's why he thinks he can get away with things. Ade's voice rose. Soft? Funk, I have trusted you to love him as your own. I've believed for 5 years that you two had a good relationship. Was I wrong? She sighed dramatically. Ade, you weren't here. You don't know how stubborn he can be. Ade's disappointment cut deeper than anger. What I know is what I'm seeing right now, and it's ugly. He reached for Chaik's hand. Get your shoes. We're going for a drive. Funk's brows knit. You're taking him out now? We're not done talking. No, Funk. I'm done talking. We'll discuss this later. Chaik hurriedly slipped on his sneakers and Ade led him out. In the living room, the silence between them was heavy. Outside, the evening air was cooler, the distant hum of the city filling the void. They got into the Range Rover. Ade started the engine, pulling away from the house. For several minutes they drove without speaking. Then Ade glanced at Chaik. Tell me the truth. Has she treated you like this before? Chaik hesitated, staring at his hands. Sometimes, when you're not around. Ade's grip on the steering wheel tightened. How often? The boy's voice was quiet. A lot. She shouts at me for small things. Sometimes she won't let me eat until late. She's nicer when people are watching. Ade felt a wave of guilt. He had been blind, assuming his home was a safe space for Chaik. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want you to fight with her because of me. Ade's heart ached. Chaik, listen to me. You matter more than anyone's feelings when it comes to your safety and dignity. I will never let anyone treat you this way again. Do you understand? Chaik gave a small nod, his eyes glistening. Yes, sir. Ade reached over, briefly squeezing the boy's shoulder. Good. Now let's get some suya before we head home. For the first time that evening, a faint smile tugged at Chaik's lips. Ade knew the conversation with Funk later would not be easy, but one thing was certain. This was the beginning of a battle he was ready to fight. Ade returned home later that evening with Chaik after their quiet drive and a shared meal. He had hoped Funk's temper might have cooled, but when they entered, she was sitting on the couch, arms crossed, her expression tight. You took him out for suya while we were in the middle of discipline? She said sharply. Ade set his keys on the console table and looked at her squarely. No, Funk. You were not disciplining him, you were humiliating him. Her brows arched. And now you're the judge of my parenting? Parenting? Ade scoffed. Slapping a child and tearing his belongings apart isn't parenting. Funk stood, her gelly slightly askew from earlier in the day. You've always undermined me when it comes to him. You think you know better because you buy him nice things and take him out. But you don't see how disrespectful he can be when you're not here. Chaik, who had been hovering by the door, looked down, clearly not wanting to be in the room. Ade noticed the boy's hand tighten on the strap of his school bag, like he wanted to disappear. Go to your room, Chaik, Ade said gently. I'll talk to you later. Once the boy was gone, Ade turned back to Funk. Tell me exactly what happened today. From the start. Funk launched into a story about missing 5,000 naira from her purse. She claimed Chaik was the only one home and therefore must have taken it. Ade interrupted. Did you find the money in his bag? Her jaw tightened. No. Then why was he on his knees crying? Because he's guilty, she snapped. Children don't cry like that for nothing. Ade's voice was low but firm. No, Funk. Children cry like that when they're scared. And I saw fear in his eyes, not guilt. She looked away, muttering something under her breath. Ade decided not to press further tonight. He knew pushing would only make her defensive. Instead, he said quietly, I'll be coming home earlier from now on. Her head whipped back toward him. What? Don't you trust me with him? Ade's expression didn't waver. I just want to be more present. The next afternoon, Ade left work at 3 p.m. and arrived home without calling ahead. As he entered, he heard Funk in the kitchen chatting cheerfully on the phone with her sister. Chaik was in the living room, his schoolbooks spread on the coffee table. Ade smiled at the boy. How was school? Good, sir, Chaik replied, his voice a little more relaxed than the day before. Funk ended her call and came over. You're early again. Is business slow? Ade ignored the jab. Business is fine. I just want to spend more time at home. Funk's eyes narrowed slightly as if she sensed his unspoken suspicion. Later that evening, while Funk was upstairs, Ade sat with Chaik and asked softly, What happened yesterday? Has it happened before? Chaik hesitated. Sometimes when you're not here she shouts a lot. She says I'm not her real child, so I shouldn't expect too much. Ade's stomach twisted. Did she ever hit you before yesterday? The boy nodded faintly. Ade exhaled slowly, fighting to keep his voice calm. From now on, if she does anything that makes you feel scared or unwanted, you tell me immediately. Do you understand? Yes, sir. Upstairs, footsteps approached. Chaik quickly bent over his books again. Funk walked in carrying a laundry basket. She glanced between them, her expression unreadable. Ade's protective instinct flared stronger than ever. He knew now that what he'd witnessed was not an isolated incident, it was a pattern. 3 days later, Ade walked into a storm. He had returned home at 5 p.m. to find Chaik sitting alone on the veranda, his eyes red. Inside, Funk was pacing the living room. What happened? Ade demanded. Funk waved her hand dismissively. Ask your precious son. He came home late from school, so I told him he couldn't watch TV tonight. He started sulking, so I sent him outside to cool off. Send him outside? In this heat? Ade's tone sharpened. He'll survive, she retorted. Maybe next time he'll learn punctuality. Ade's patience snapped. Funk, you don't get to treat him like this. You wouldn't do this to your nieces. You've never once sent them out for being late. Funk's voice rose. My nieces know how to respect me. He doesn't. Chaik flinched at the sound of her voice. Ade stepped between them, his voice controlled but firm. You will not make him your target. If you have an issue, talk to me, not him. Her eyes blazed. So you're taking his side again? I'm taking the side of fairness. And decency. Funk's lips thinned, but she said nothing more. The tension hung in the air like a storm that hadn't broken yet. Ade decided Chaik needed a break from the oppressive atmosphere at home. Come, Ade said that Saturday morning. Let's go for a drive. They left without telling Funk. As they drove past the bustling streets of Victoria Island, Chaik's posture relaxed little by little. Are you okay? Ade asked. Yes, sir, Chaik replied, though his tone lacked conviction. Ade decided to be direct. You don't have to protect her feelings at the expense of your own. Has she been this way for years? Chaik stared out the window. Since you married her. Ade's chest ached. And you never told me because? I thought you'd be angry. Or, maybe you'd send me away. Ade's voice softened. Chaik, listen carefully. Nothing you say will make me stop being here for you. I'm not your biological father, but I chose to be your father. And I will protect you. Always. Chaik blinked rapidly, his throat working as if holding back tears. Ade smiled faintly. Now let's get you some ice cream. For the rest of the day they visited a bookshop, had lunch by the lagoon and only returned home after sunset. Ade knew Funk would be displeased, but he didn't care. Chaik needed to know someone was on his side. On Monday evening, Ade met his longtime friend Kunal at their usual lounge in Lekki. Kunal was the kind of friend who didn't sugarcoat. You look troubled, Kunal said after their first sip of beer. Ade sighed. It's Funk. I found her mistreating Chaik. And now I'm realizing it's been going on for years. Kunal frowned. Ade, people can hide who they really are for a long time. I've seen it before. Don't underestimate the damage this could do to the boy. I already feel like I failed him, Ade admitted. You didn't fail him, Kunal said firmly. But if you don't act now, you will. Ade nodded slowly. He had ignored small red flags before marriage. Moments when Funk's patience with Chaik seemed thinner than with others. He had convinced himself it was just stress. Now he knew better. That night, Ade returned home ready to confront Funk again. She was in the dining room plating food. You're just in time for dinner, she said brightly. Ade didn't smile. We need to talk. Her hand stilled on the serving spoon. About what? About the way you treat Chaik. Funk rolled her eyes. Not this again. Yes, this again. I've seen enough to know it's not a one-time thing. She shrugged. You're exaggerating. He's fine. You just spoil him too much. Funk, he's a child. He deserves kindness and respect. She set the spoon down, her voice suddenly sharp. I am his mother. You don't get to dictate how I raise him. Ade's voice was calm but edged with steel. When how you raise him crosses into emotional abuse, I do get to say something. She scoffed. Emotional abuse? Really? Yes, really, Ade replied, meeting her gaze without flinching. The air between them crackled with unspoken tension. Ade knew this was only the beginning of a battle that would test every boundary in their marriage. Ade began to adjust his work schedule. He didn't announce it to Funk, but over the next week he made unannounced midday visits home. He wanted to see what happened when he wasn't expected. On Tuesday he arrived around 1:30 p.m. Chaik was in the living room, nervously scrubbing the coffee table with a damp cloth while Funk sat nearby scrolling through her phone. "Good afternoon," Ade said, stepping inside. Funk glanced up, surprised. "You're home early again. Is something wrong?" "No," Ade said evenly. "I just wanted to see my family." She gave a small smile, but he noticed how quickly Chaik straightened as if caught doing something wrong. 2 days later, Ade came home again during lunch hour. This time he heard Funk's voice, sharp and impatient, from the kitchen. "How many times have I told you not to touch the fridge without asking me?" she snapped. Ade stepped into the doorway. Chaik was holding a bottle of water, looking ashamed. "Is there a problem?" Ade asked, his eyes on Funk. Her expression shifted instantly. "No problem. I was just telling him to be careful." But Ade saw it, the way she softened only when he appeared. The pattern was becoming clear. She was sweet to her nieces when they visited, gentle with friends' children, but her patience for Chaik was paper-thin. Later that night, Ade made a decision. He needed to get the full truth directly from Chaik. That evening after dinner, Ade knocked on Chaik's door. The boy was at his desk, pretending to read, but Ade saw the way his shoulders tensed. "Can we talk?" Ade asked. Chaik nodded, setting his book aside. "I need you to be honest with me," Ade began. "When I'm not around, how does Funk treat you?" Chaik hesitated, then sighed. She's different when you're here. When you're gone, she shouts at me for small things. Sometimes she says I'm not part of her family." Ade's chest tightened. "Has she ever left you out of family outings?" "Yes. There was that time she took her nieces to the amusement park and told me you said I couldn't come because of homework. But when you came home that day you didn't mention it, so I knew she lied." Ade's jaw clenched. "And the slaps." Chaik's voice was barely above a whisper. "It happens, not every day. But enough." Ade exhaled slowly, guilt weighing heavily on him. "Chaik, I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I should have." Chaik looked up, his eyes glistening. "I didn't want to cause trouble." "You're not causing trouble," Ade said firmly. "You're telling me the truth. And the truth matters." He put a hand on Chaik's shoulder. "From now on, things will be different." Ade couldn't keep this to himself anymore. On Saturday he drove Chaik to visit Mama Dupe, his mother, in Surulere. "Mama, I need to talk to you," Ade began once they were seated in her cozy living room. Mama Dupe's sharp eyes moved between him and Chaik. "What's wrong?" Ade told her everything, how Funk had been treating Chaik, the slap, the emotional neglect, the pattern he'd been seeing. By the time he finished, Mama Dupe's lips were pressed into a thin, angry line. Ade, this is serious. Children remember how they were treated for the rest of their lives. You cannot allow this to continue." "I know," Ade said quietly. I thought things were fine. I was wrong." Mama Dupe reached for Chaik's hand. "My boy, you are loved. Don't let anyone make you think otherwise." Chaik gave a small smile, the kind that comes from feeling seen. Before they left, Mama Dupe pulled Ade aside. "If she doesn't change, you must protect this child. Marriage is important, but not at the cost of his well-being." Ade nodded, her words settling heavily in his mind. When Ade returned home that evening, Funk was in the living room watching a Nollywood drama. "We need to talk," he said. She muted the TV, sighing. "Again?" "Yes. I've spoken to Chaik and I know this isn't about discipline, it's about how you see him." Funk's eyes narrowed. "Oh, so now you believe him over me?" "I believe what I've seen with my own eyes," Ade replied. She threw up her hands. "Ade, I'm disciplining him for his own good. You think life will be kind to him if he's soft? He needs to toughen up." Ade shook his head. "There's a difference between discipline and cruelty. And calling him not part of your family, how does that help him?" Her voice sharpened. "Stop twisting my words. You're making me the villain here." "You don't need me to twist anything," Ade said evenly. "Your actions speak for themselves." Funk leaned back, arms crossed. "Maybe you should focus on your business and let me handle the home." Ade's eyes hardened. "Not when handling the home means hurting my son." The next morning, Ade set the rules clearly. "No more physical punishment," he said. "No more treating Chaik differently from your nieces. And no more exclusion from family activities." Funk gave a sarcastic laugh. "And if I don't agree? Then we have a bigger problem than I thought," Ade replied calmly. She rolled her eyes. "Fine. I'll do it your way." But Ade saw the insincerity in her tone. He knew compliance wouldn't last, not when she still believed she was justified. That afternoon, Chaik asked quietly, "Did you talk to her?" "Yes," Ade said. "And I'm watching closely. If she tries anything again, I'll step in immediately. Chaik nodded, a flicker of relief in his eyes. Ade knew the days ahead would test him. He just didn't realize how soon the test would come. 2 weeks later, Ade was driving back from a site visit when the rain started pouring heavily. The roads were slick and Lagos traffic slowed to a crawl. His phone buzzed. It was Chaik. "Daddy, I'm outside. I forgot my key and..." The boy's voice cracked. "She won't let me in." Ade's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "You're outside? In the rain?" "Yes, sir. I'm on my way." It took nearly 25 minutes to get home through the traffic. When Ade pulled into the compound, he saw Chaik standing by the gate, drenched from head to toe, shivering. Ade jumped out, pulling the boy into the car. "Where's Funk?" "In the kitchen," Chaik whispered. Ade marched inside, dripping rain onto the tiles. Funk was indeed in the kitchen, chopping vegetables. "You left him outside?" Ade's voice was deadly calm. She looked up, unfazed. "He forgot his key. Actions have consequences." "Consequences?" Ade's tone rose. "He's 15. In the rain. Do you know how dangerous that is?" Funk shrugged. "Maybe next time he'll remember." Ade stared at her for a long moment, his disappointment cutting deeper than any anger could. "This is the last time you'll ever do something like this to him." "I swear it." The following Sunday, Funk's relatives were visiting. 3 of her cousins and an aunt who always seemed to take her side in every matter. The living room was filled with chatter and the clinking of teacups. Ade had been polite, keeping conversation light, until he saw Chaik walk in from the veranda. His shirt was damp, and his hair still carried traces of rain. Ade's blood boiled. Just hours earlier he had told Funk never to leave Chaik outside again. And here was the proof that she hadn't listened. "Chaik," Ade called softly, "come here." The boy approached, hesitant. Ade looked at him closely. "Were you just outside?" "Yes, sir," Chaik replied quietly. "Why?" "I was told to wait until the guests finished eating." Ade's gaze shifted to Funk, who was laughing at a joke her cousin had just made. "Funk, a word, now." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to them. Funk looked irritated. "What is it?" "In front of everyone," Ade said firmly, "why did you make Chaik stay outside in the rain again?" Gasps echoed around the room. Her aunt frowned. "Funk, is that true?" Funk flushed. "He forgot his manners. He barged in while we were serving food. I told him to wait outside." Ade's voice was sharp. "He's not a stray dog. He's your son. You don't humiliate him like that." Her cousin shifted uncomfortably. Her aunt shook her head. "Funk, this isn't right." Funk tried to laugh it off. "You're making a scene." "Yes," Ade said, his voice cutting through the room, "because I'm done pretending everything is fine." The tension was thick, but Ade didn't care. Chaik's dignity mattered more than anyone's comfort. The next day, Ade called his friend Kunal for a referral to a good child psychologist. By Wednesday they were sitting in Dr. Ifeoma's warm, book-lined office. Chaik sat stiffly at first, glancing between Ade and the doctor. "Chaik," Dr. Ifeoma said kindly, "this is a safe space. You can say anything here." At first Chaik only shrugged. But with gentle prompts, the words began to spill out. How Funk ignored him, how she excluded him from outings, how her words sometimes stung more than the slaps. Dr. Ifeoma listened intently, occasionally glancing at Ade with a look that said, "You're right to be concerned." After the session she spoke privately to Ade. "This is emotional abuse, Ade. He's showing signs of low self-worth and anxiety. The longer it continues, the harder it will be to repair. He needs consistent reassurance and a safe environment." Ade nodded grimly. "And Funk? She needs to understand the damage she's causing. If she's willing, family therapy could help. But you must be prepared for the possibility that she won't change." Ade left the office with a heavier but clearer heart. The stakes were now undeniable. That night, Ade waited until Chaik was asleep before confronting Funk. She was in their bedroom removing her earrings. "We're going to family counseling," Ade said without preamble. Funk froze. "Excuse me? You heard me. The way you treat Chaik has to change, and I'm not asking any more. If you refuse, we're done." She turned slowly, eyes flashing. "You're threatening me with divorce over this?" "Yes," Ade said evenly. "Because this isn't just about us, it's about a child's well-being." Funk scoffed. "You're overreacting. Counseling is for people with real problems." Ade's voice sharpened. "We have a real problem. You're hurting my son." She gave a short, humorless laugh. "Your son. That's what this is about? You've never really seen him as mine." "No," Ade said, stepping closer. I saw him as ours. You're the one who decided to draw the line. Funk turned away, waving her hand. I'm not wasting my time in some therapist's office. Then you've made your choice, Ade said quietly, leaving the room. The call came on a Thursday afternoon while Ade was in a meeting. His phone buzzed insistently, Chike's name flashing on the screen. Daddy, Chike's voice trembled. She threw my clothes outside. Ade's stomach dropped. What happened? I forgot to do the dishes after lunch. She told me to pack my things and leave. She threw them on the front steps. Ade didn't wait another second. Stay where you are. I'm coming. He drove straight home, every traffic light feeling like an eternity. When he arrived, Chike's clothes were scattered in a heap by the door, some already damp from the early evening drizzle. Chike stood beside them, hugging himself. Ade gathered the clothes into his arms and led Chike inside. Funk was in the living room, watching TV as if nothing had happened. You've crossed the line, Ade said, his voice low but shaking with fury. She didn't even look up. Maybe he'll learn to listen now. No, Ade said. What he's learned is that you will never see him as family. And I will not let you do this to him again. She finally met his gaze, perhaps realizing this wasn't just another argument. But by then Ade had already decided. Ade didn't sleep that night. He sat at the dining table with a notepad, a cup of black coffee, and the heaviness of a decision he could no longer postpone. Around midnight, Chike padded out from his room in socks, eyes puffy but steady. He didn't ask whether they were leaving, he only asked, when? In the morning, Ade said. Pack only what you need for now. I'll come back for the rest later. Chike nodded, then hesitated. Daddy, is this my fault? Ade reached for his hand. No. It's my responsibility to protect you. I should have acted sooner. Morning came with a gray sky and the familiar Lagos hum, generators, horns, sellers calling out breakfast. Ade moved through the house with purpose. He printed documents from his study, took photos of Chike's scattered clothes at the doorway as evidence, and placed his marriage certificate into a folder. When Funk woke, she found suitcases by the door and the roses, once meant for joy, wilted in a vase. What are you doing? She asked, voice tight. I'm moving out with my son, Ade said evenly. I've filed for a legal separation. The papers will be served this week. Her eyes widened. You can't be serious. Over dishes? Over a child forgetting keys? Over sustained cruelty, Ade replied. Over being locked outside in the rain. Over slaps. Over words that cut deeper than any slap. She scoffed. You're making me the villain because you like to play savior. You've always wanted to be the hero. I want to be a father, he said. And a father doesn't stand by while his child is harmed. He looked past her to Chike, who stood with a backpack and a small duffel, trying not to shake. Ade squeezed his shoulder. Go wait in the car, son. When the front door closed behind the boy, Funk's voice softened, a last attempt. Ade, think about our home, our friends, the things we've built. I am thinking about a boy who stopped laughing in his own house, he said. A house isn't a home if a child is afraid inside it. He picked up the folder, keys, and the phone charger still looped around a socket. At the threshold he paused. If you want to change, speak to the counselor. Not to me. I'll communicate through counsel. The drive to the new apartment in Lekki was quiet, broken only by directions and small breaths. Ade had signed the lease 2 days earlier, an action that felt treacherous at the time and necessary now. The building was modest compared to their old duplex, but it was clean, secure, and bright. The security guard lifted the gate and saluted as they drove in. Apartment 3B smelled of fresh paint and clean wood. It had 2 bedrooms, a functional kitchen, and a small balcony that faced a mango tree. Ade opened the windows, letting the damp morning air drift in, and set down the folder on the counter. Chike walked from room to room like a quiet inspector. It's nice, he said finally, voice thin. It will be nicer when we add your posters and books, Ade said. We'll get a proper desk, better curtains, and a rug you choose. They unpacked essentials. Ade assembled a simple bed frame while Chike arranged his textbooks in neat stacks on the windowsill. Around noon, Ade cooked a quick pot of jollof with fried plantain. They ate at the counter, plates warm in their hands. Halfway through, Chike looked up. Will I still go to the same school? Yes, Ade answered. Same school, same friends. I'll drive you until I arrange transport. Chike nodded. What about Grandma? She knows, Ade said. We'll go see her this weekend. After lunch, Ade made calls. His lawyer, the HR lead to adjust his schedule, the property manager to confirm parking. He ordered a new lock for the old home office accounts and changed passwords. Every action felt like a thread being cut and a new one knotted. By late afternoon the apartment took shape. Fresh sheets, towels, a blue lamp on Chaik's bedside table. Ade stood in the doorway watching the boy test the lamp switch, on, off, on, as if rehearsing certainty. The doorbell rang. Kunal stood there with a plastic bag of toiletries, bottled water, and a small box. "Emergency starter pack," he said, stepping in. His eyes scanned the room, then settled on Ade. "You did it." "I had to," Ade said. Kunal clasped his shoulder. "Good. Now keep your head clear. She may call, cry, or rage. Direct everything to your lawyer. Protect your peace." Chaik approached shyly. "Thank you, uncle." Kunal smiled. "Your job is to get strong and keep your grades up. The rest is adult noise." When Kunal left, evening came with a soft rain. Ade and Chaik stood on the balcony, watching droplets stipple the mango leaves. Somewhere nearby a child laughed. The sound startled Chaik, then he smiled, small but real. "Daddy," he said, "I feel lighter." Ade swallowed. "Me too." The phone buzzed. "Funk." He let it ring out. A message followed. "We can fix this. Come home. People are already asking questions." Another, "You're embarrassing me." Ade turned the phone face down. "We're not going back," he said aloud, more to himself than to anyone else. Night settled. Ade tucked Chaik in, then sat at the counter with the folder and a pen. He wrote a statement of events, dates, and details while memory was fresh. The slap, the rain, the thrown clothes. He wrote, crossed out, and wrote again. Truth deserved clarity. Close to midnight he checked on Chaik. The boy was asleep, one hand under his cheek, the blue lamp casting a calm circle. Ade's chest loosened for the first time in months. Back in the living room he set an alarm for the morning school run and texted the lawyer. "We've moved out. Proceed." Before turning off the lights, he stood by the window and listened to the rain hush the city. He thought of vows, of homes, of the silent damage words can do. He thought of how easy it is to ignore a soft cry when the party music is loud. He whispered to the glass, a promise and a prayer in one breath. "You're safe now, my son." And for the first time in a long while he believed it. The first morning in their new apartment began with sunlight spilling across the cream walls and the scent of brewing coffee. Ade stood in the kitchen, frying eggs while slices of bread browned in the toaster. Chaik shuffled in, wearing a fresh polo shirt and jeans for school, his hair neatly combed. "Morning, Daddy," he said with a small but genuine smile. "Morning, champ," Ade replied, sliding eggs onto 2 plates. "Eat up. First day starting from here, got to make it special." Chaik sat at the counter, tucking into his food. He glanced around the small kitchen, now dotted with their mugs, utensils, and a cheerful potted plant by the window. "It feels different here." "Different good or different bad?" Ade asked. "Good," Chaik said after a pause. "It's quiet. And you seem happier." Ade smiled faintly. "I am. Peace feels different when you've lived without it." After breakfast they drove to school. Ade noticed how Chaik sat a little straighter in the passenger seat, no longer hunched like he was bracing for trouble. At the school gate, Chaik hesitated. "Will you still be here when I get back?" "I'll be here," Ade promised. "Always." The day moved in small victories. Ade arranged for a desk and bookshelves to be delivered for Chaik's room. He also met with his lawyer at a quiet cafe, reviewing the separation papers before they were filed. Funk had sent several messages, some angry, some pleading, but Ade had stuck to Kunal's advice. No responses, only legal communication. By afternoon the apartment began to look lived in. Chaik's room now had a sturdy desk with his favorite science posters on the wall. Ade's own room was simple but functional, a laptop set up in the corner for work-from-home days. The balcony had 2 chairs and a small table where they could share evening tea. When Chaik came home from school he dropped his bag and headed straight to his room, his voice carrying down the hall. "Daddy?" The desk came. Ade followed, smiling at the boy's excitement. "You approve?" "It's perfect," Chaik said, already arranging his notebooks. "I can do my homework here without anyone telling me to move or making noise." "That's the idea," Ade said. They spent the rest of the afternoon shopping for a few more essentials at the market. Curtains for Chaik's room, a proper frying pan, and ingredients for dinner. Chaik picked out bright blue curtains and a packet of chin-chin as a treat. Ade let him choose. It was a small freedom, but one the boy seemed to savor. Back home they cooked together. Chaik peeled carrots while Ade seasoned chicken. Music played softly from Ade's phone, old high-life tunes that made the space feel warm. As they ate, Chike's laughter came more easily, unburdened. Ade realized it had been months since he'd heard that sound without tension behind it. After dinner, Mama Dupe called. Ade put her on speaker so Chike could hear. "My boy," she said warmly. "How was your first day in the new place?" "It was good, Grandma," Chike replied, grinning. "Daddy bought me a desk." "That's wonderful," she said. "You deserve to feel at home. Ade, I'm proud of you. You've done the right thing." When the call ended, Ade sat on the balcony with tea, watching the streetlights flicker on. Chike joined him, sitting in the chair beside his. They watched a group of children chase each other down the street, their laughter echoing. "Daddy?" Chike said after a while. "Yes. Do you think, one day, she'll be nicer to me?" Ade was quiet for a moment. "I don't know, son. People can change, but only if they want to. What I do know is, from now on, you'll be treated with respect no matter where you are." Chike nodded, as if settling something deep inside himself. "Okay." They sat in comfortable silence, sipping tea and listening to the distant hum of traffic. Weeks passed. Ade kept his promise. He was present for school runs, homework help, and Saturday morning football at the park. Chike's grades improved steadily, and his teachers commented on how much more engaged he seemed. The boy began to make more friends, even joining the science club. Funk, through her lawyer, requested meetings to discuss reconciliation. Ade declined politely but firmly. In his heart, he knew the trust had been broken beyond repair. Love without safety wasn't love worth returning to. One Saturday, Connell visited again, bringing with him a small potted palm for the balcony. "For fresh air and good vibes," he said, setting it down. Chike grinned. "I like it." Connell pulled Ade aside as the boy watered the plant. "You know, you look lighter yourself. This was the right move." Ade exhaled, glancing at Chike. "I wish I'd done it sooner." "That's the thing about hard decisions," Connell said. "The right time is always now." By the third month, the apartment had fully transformed into a home. The mango tree outside their window had begun to fruit, and Chike had taken to collecting the ripest ones with the landlord's permission. They had movie nights on Fridays, long walks on Sundays, and an unspoken rule: the balcony was for talking or just being quiet together. One evening, after a particularly good day, Chike had won a science competition at school. Ade found himself reflecting on everything they'd endured. The surprise visit that had uncovered the truth. The arguments. The rain-soaked boy at the gate. The final decision to leave. All of it had led to this moment. Peace. As Chike proudly displayed his science medal on the bookshelf, Ade felt something settle inside him. It wasn't just relief, it was certainty. He had made the right choice. Later that night, they stood on the balcony again. The city skyline shimmered in the distance, lights twinkling like scattered stars. Chike leaned against the railing, metal still hanging around his neck. "Daddy," he said softly, "thank you." "For what?" Ade asked. "For choosing me." Ade's throat tightened. He placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "I'll always choose you." They stayed there a while longer, watching the city, knowing that while the past had been painful, the future was now theirs to shape. In that moment, Ade understood something important. The real happy surprise wasn't the one he had planned with flowers and cake months ago. It was this. Freedom. Safety. A home built on respect. And for the first time in years, Ade let himself truly breathe. Liked it? Thumbs up, subscribe, and join the AfriHeart fam. Your support fuels our stories. Until next time.